The head of the Shang clan, Shang Yin, saw thousands of arms blasting toward him, and retreated rapidly. The head of the Shang clan, Shang Yin, saw thousands of arms blasting toward him, and retreated rapidly. The 1,000 divine arms stretched out. Each arm turned into a storm of vortex, wrapping the space within it, as if there was nowhere to escape. Shang Yan's hands condensed the seal. He stopped in his tracks. His body was radiant all over. The light of flames surrounded his entire body, protecting him. The storm came in a great gulp as the two flames collided together, and he was directly sucked into the storm of the 1,000 divine arms. Boom! A horrific vortex of devouring power descended, and Shang Yin felt that the flames around him had now turned into currents of flames toward the other, and was swallowed up and melted madly. The expression on his face was terrible. How could this be? He thought. He was of the Nirvana plane, and his flame was extremely overbearing, capable of melting everything. Every attack that came near would be destroyed, but the flame of the other swallowed and refined his flames. It was as if its ranking was higher, unless it was because it had borrowed from Emperor Qua and inherited the secret of his treasures. When his thought turned to this, his look was gloomy. The flaming currents over his body were swallowed up madly, as he was buried in a vortex of flames. This vortex turned into a sun, and he seemed to be in the center of the fire of the sun. The infinite fire of the sun intended to burn him into nothingness. Boom! Shang Yin himself had a flaming body. The fire of the sun refined his body, but could not burn it up within a short time. He bathed in flames, as if he had turned into a god of flames. Elsewhere, great battles erupted, but while Wu Yong was defending and attacking, his focus was on Shang Yin. Among the leaders of the 7 major tribes, Shang Yin was the weakest. Now that he had come upon the opportunity, he would rush in and get rid of one of them first. This way, it could destroy the confidence of all other tribes. Shang Yin had already been shrouded in a solar sphere, and the flame in the center of the sun appeared crimson red, like blood, which was shocking to behold. Even, Shang Yin felt a sense of danger. Yi Futian was manipulating the sun spirit orb, and rays of true solar fire condensed and manifested, following Wu Yong's body. It flew toward the space where Shang Yang was. The true fire fell and sprinkled on him. At this moment, Shang Yin felt a sizzling sound from his flaming body. It was being burnt and melted. Impossible! As Shang Yin sensed this change, his face was filled with shock. It was impossible. He was of the Nirvana plane. Even if Wu Yong had borrowed the way, it was not possible that he could have melted him. As the light of true fire continued to fall, the sizzling continued, and a series of even stronger crimson beams fell down. They pierced his flaming body, so that his body became unreal under the flames. Then a sharp pain was felt. Boom! He took one step, his body soared into the sky, brought the flames into the heavens above. He was trying to escape. From the outside, Wu Yong, as a Zhonglo war god, glanced over the space where he was. Divine fire shot out from his eyes, falling wildly. The fire of the great path was madly flowing above the immense torso. From the outside, Shang Yan's body could be seen within the sun. As they saw this scene, Zhu Kong and others were greatly shocked. Zhu Kong manifested a giant sun god sword, pierced through the void, and headed in that direction, trying to save Shang Yan. After all, the 7 major tribes came together. Their honor was bound together. From the solar storm, countless lines of true fire were shot out, swallowing Shang Yan's body little by little until, with a final loud bang, the sun exploded. Shang Yan's body disappeared into the endless flame. He was burned and killed. Sir! In the distance, the faces of the cultivators of the Shang clan had significantly changed. Zhu Kong and the others also changed. Wu Yong was now able to vanquish the existence of Nirvana cultivators. Although Shang Yin was a weaker existence among the leaders of the 7 tribes, he was once stronger than the former leader of the Wu clan. Among the 9 major tribes, now only the leaders of 8 major tribes remained. If Wu Yong were removed, then there would only be 7 major tribes. Moreover, too many of the Bailey tribes seemed to be a little too uncertain, waiting to see which way the wind would blow. They didn't expect that when the 7 major tribes came to arrest people, that they would lose someone from the Nirvana plane among them, or that Yi Futian was able to lend the way to Wu Yong. This disturbed him extremely. After the death of Emperor Kwa, even though the 9 major tribes continued to fight amongst themselves, they still maintained the same stance against outsiders, which was the reason why they could rule the Western Territory for such a long time. Now, were the 9 major tribes finally about to usher in major changes? Of course, beside disturbance, there was also anger. Zhu Kong stared at Wu Yong and said, "The 9 major tribes were as one, and you killed Shang Yan." Wu Yong glanced at him indifferent. The instigator was Zhu Kong. What sense did it make to accuse him now? If they could have killed him to plunder the inheritance of Emperor Kwa, would they have shown mercy? Absolutely not. I'm cleaning house for Emperor Kwa. You have moved against the heirs of Emperor Kwa, and betrayed the emperor's will. You are already rebels, Wu Yong said. Since both sides had already chosen different positions, the only way was to keep going. Zhu Kong's body soared into the sky, and the bright sunlight above the firmament showered on his body. An endless sun god sword was suddenly created between heaven and earth, covering the vast and immense space in it, sheltering the sky and shielding the sun. Qingye City, countless many looked up, and all were able to witness this shocking scene. Many continued to retreat away from this battlefield. It had become too dangerous here. Zhu Kong, it seemed, was not intending to approach but attacked toward the distance and along the borders. Not only him, but the other 6 Nirvana figures had all released their power. With Zhu Kong's finger pointed downward, the infinite sun god sword fell down, destroying everything. In the distance, a sacred flaming dragon came roaring. These magnificent dragons appeared as true dragons that had descended upon the world and rushed toward those sun god swords. Along with the great roars, a figure came along. The man was holding a scepter. It was Bailey Chiu, the leader of the Bailey tribe. "Zhu Kong, are you still so obstinate?" Bailey Chiu said to Zhu Kong, who was in the void. "Are you also on his side?" Zhu Kong stared at Bailey Chiu and said. Previously, Bailey Chiu's attitude was ambiguous. He had helped Yi Futian when Yi Futian and his party came out of the ancestral lands. Now, seeing that Yi Futian could lend the way to Wu Yong, had he come out and chosen his position? You have delusional thoughts, and wanted to plunder what was not yours. Have you ever considered that the relics of Emperor Kwa had existed for many years? And if the 9 major tribes were not able to obtain them, it was because they were destined not to belong to the 9 major tribes? City Lord Yi entered the ancestral lands, and inherited Emperor Kwa's last will and testament. Even if you don't recognize his status, and are unwilling to follow him, why can't you give City Lord Yi some time? Perhaps he could lead the 9 ancestral lands? Bailey Chiu said out loud clearly. He was on Yi Futian's side, and there were public and personal reasons. Yi Futian was able to obtain the inheritance because his talent was recognized by Emperor Kwa, creating history. His future was unlimited, and he may become the next Emperor Kwa. As for personal reasons, it had been proven that the 9 major tribes were having difficulties taking them down. So why not follow the trend and make friends with Yi Futian? Zhu Kong's look was indifferent. Right now, there were already 3 Nirvana figures around Yi Futian: Wu Yong, Shen Tianzhan, Bailey Chiu, and it was unknown whether or not more Nirvana figures were hiding within Emperor Xia's realm. But what really frustrated them was that Yi Futian was able to lend the way to Wu Yong to exert the fighting power of Nirvana's peak, so that they could not approach him, and were unable to take down Yi Futian. Today all 7 major tribes were here. What should have been a simple and easy battle turned out to be so incredibly difficult, and a Nirvana existence was killed because of it. But now the 2 sides were like water against fire. It was a state of conflict that could not be easily avoided. Even if they did not kill Yi Futian, the other would come and find them sooner or later in the future. If Yi Futian took Wu Yong to break them down one by one in the future, it would be a great disaster for each of the major tribes. Under such circumstances, they had to succeed today no matter what. When his thoughts turned to this, Zhu Kong looked around the people surrounding heaven and earth. Those who were still nearby were all top influencers, and there were existences of Nirvana on the sideline, guarding. He said loudly, "You have all witnessed this battle. Yi Futian possesses the treasures passed down by Emperor Kwa. According to the eyewitnesses of the Wu clan, they have seen the gates of the ancestral lands of our 9 tribes. And at the time of the inheritance, Yi Futian had used the things inherited by Emperor Kwa to devour the entire ancestral land in fire, which caused the ruins of the ancestral land to disappear. Now, the power he lent to Wu Yong was likely only part of the power from the ancestral lands that were devoured. Use your imagination. What do you think that would be? Everyone who heard the words of Zhu Kong revealed a strange look. They understood. No wonder the 7 major tribes arrived together and had already determined his crime, intending to take Yi Futian away forcibly, even if what they did would enrage Emperor Xia's realm. What a terrible thing Emperor Kwa's inheritance was, in addition to the secret treasure that could devour the whole ancestral land. Seeing was believing. At this moment, Yi Futian's lending the way to Wu Yong had also confirmed Zhu Kong's words. If they could get it, would they have a chance to take it one step higher on the way of the flames? Or would they comprehend the will of Emperor Kwa and impact the realm of Renhuang? When their thoughts turned to this, the eyes of even more people were burning red hot. Yi Futian was in the flames of the sun, indifferent, merely staring at Zhu Kong, who was in the void. Was this to incite everyone to fight against him? Zhu Kong knew that it was difficult for the 7 major tribes to achieve, so he began to use the power of the Crimson Dragon realm to make him the target of public criticism. It was quite vicious. Even if they could not obtain it, they would cut him off, so he had nowhere to go. Everyone who came here today must have heard about it. Now why not get together, and whoever can get it, it will belong to that person. How about it? Zhu Kong continued, urging everyone to take a shot. Many of the top figures were tempted. In another direction, Xing Qiu had already returned to the side of Saint King of Gai. He had suffered major injuries. Yi Futian's battle had forced a stop between their fight with Yu Sheng. Uncle, do you want to try? Xing Qiu said to Saint King of Gai. Are you interested? Saint King of Gai asked Xing Qiu. The relic of Renhuang that could devour the ancestral lands. It does sound interesting. Even if I do not practice the art of flames, I can comprehend. Not to mention, this thing is bound to be valuable, Xing Qiu said. Very well then. Since you are interested, I'll take it for you as a present, Saint King of Gai said softly, as if he decided to make a move. The treasure must be his. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The Saint King of Gai had been in the debt of the 9th servant, city lord of the ancient imperial city, since he was young. He was subsequently taught by the 9th servant, resulting in his legendary status in the Crimson Dragon realm. The Saint King of Gai had been in the debt of the 9th servant, city lord of the ancient imperial city, since he was young. He was subsequently taught by the 9th servant, resulting in his legendary status in the Crimson Dragon realm. His playing could have easily made him the lord of a city. However, he had not done so. Instead, he'd spent his days either traveling the land or training in the ancient imperial city. Everyone who knew him saw him as a member of the ancient imperial city, due to his close relationship with the 9th servant and the others. Even though they were not related by blood, Xing Kai and Xing Qiu called him their uncle. The Saint King of Gai nonetheless valued Xing Kai and Xing Qiu very much. Everyone in Crimson Dragon realm knew that to be true. The Saint King of Gai did not have any descendants, so he nurtured the Xing brothers as if they were his own. The 9th servant, who was known as the number 1 holiness of Nirvana, hardly needed his help with anything. As such, he was still unable to repay his debt to the 9th servant. Furthermore, he had not worried about the 9 tribes of Emperor Kwa coming after him when he'd taken it. The Saint King of Gai naturally knew that Zhu Kong had instigated others to take out Yi Futian, because he was unable to do so himself. This would get rid of Yi Futian, and give them all the chance to take the secret treasures of Emperor Kwa once Yi Futian was dead. However, only 6 of the 9 tribes stood together at the moment. Their allegiances were divided, but then again, he would not have to concern himself with those western tribes once he got his hands on the treasure. Even if the 9 tribes stood together as one, there would still be nothing for him to fear. In the eras that followed Emperor Kwa's passing, the 9 tribes lost their former glory. The 9 tribes, which still reigned over the western region nonetheless, hardly concerned him. He saw the 9 tribes as nothing compared to the ancient imperial city. If the 9th servant made a move, not even holiness of nirvanas would be able to stand in his way. The Saint King of Gai stepped forward, bursting with dazzling golden light. Many pairs of eyes turned to him in an instant. All those looking shuddered intensely. No one had anticipated that the first to act would be the Saint King of Gai. There were many top-notch figures present that day. No one knew if they would act against Qinya City. They all waited to see what would happen. Someone would make a move after Zhu Kong spoke. What surprised them all was that the first to make a move was the fearsome Saint King of Gai. All of them wondered what would happen to Qinya City and Yi Futian after that. Would they be able to escape this ordeal? Yi Futian shot a glance at the Saint King of Gai. Many people behind him made severe expressions at the sight. Shen Tianzhan's pupils contracted somewhat as he said, "Be careful. The Saint King of Gai is an extremely renowned holiness of nirvana. His art at manipulating space is second to none. He is an extremely dangerous threat." Yi Futian, who was basking in the light of the sun, looked coldly at the Saint King of Gai and Xing Qiu as they walked toward him. Was this the Saint King of Gai's will or Xing Qiu's? But then again that hardly mattered. The Saint King of Gai stepped forward. Frightening storms of space whipped up around them as he threw his palm forward. Terrifying whirlpools appeared near Wu Yong and Yi Futian in an instant. Wu Yong, who had taken the form of a god of war and fire, shot a look at the Saint King of Gai, feeling extremely threatened. The will of the great path wielded by the Saint King of Gai was indeed second to none. His eyes turned into the divine eyes of the sun. Terrifying will of the flames transformed into the sun, shrouding the Saint King of Gai. The Saint King of Gai responded by grabbing them with his hand. The space around them was twisted until the will of the great path was crushed. One wave of his hand was all it had taken to destroy it all. The Saint King of Gai continued to walk forward. It took only a single step to close in on Wu Yong and the others. The surrounding mighty beings were all shocked by the move. The Saint King of Gai was indeed a legendary fearsome figure. His attacks were able to shake Wu Yong, who had borrowed powers to use as his own. The space around the Saint King of Gai warped as the will of the great path of space emerged, conjuring terrifying whirlpools to devour everything. He extended his hand again. The space between both Wu Yong and Yi Futian was twisted. Yi Futian sensed that a terrifying will of the great path was indeed intending to separate him from Wu Yong. It was apparent that the Saint King of Gai had realized that Wu Yong was currently at the pinnacle of holiness of nirvana level, making it difficult to find attacks against Wu Yong. As such, the only thing he could do was sever the connection between Yi Futian and Wu Yong. Zhu Kong and the others undoubtedly knew that as well. They were, however, unable to pull this off. However, the Saint King of Gai's manipulation of space made it possible nonetheless. If the connection between them was severed, and the borrowed powers failed, Wu Yong would only be a common holiness of nirvana. If that happened, any of the 6 tribes' holiness of nirvanas would be able to fight him. Yi Futian would have no way to resist the incoming attacks then. Wu Yong's expression changed when he realized what the Saint King of Gai was trying to do. His eyes turned into divine eyes, intending to trap the Saint King of Gai in the fires of the sun. However, the Saint King of Gai was extremely perceptive of space. He simply took one step forward and blitzed through space at blinding speeds. It was as if he was trying to tear space itself apart. The attack was unable to even touch his body. The 1,000 divine arms burst out and covered out the sky in an instant, blocking out the sky. Countless flaming hands shot forth, burying the space with a flurry of attacks. A warped storm of space appeared right before the Saint King of Gai. He stepped into the air and extended his hand forward. The devastating storm twisted and tore the incoming hands of the great path. Will of the great path of space then shrouded Wu Yong's Chonglu battle form at the same time, separating him from Yi Futian. A twisted storm of space shot at Yi Futian at the same time. "Look out!" Shen Tianzhan stood before Yi Futian and launched a palm attack, sending the incoming attack reeling backward. The aura around Wu Yong dwindled rapidly. His boundless flames of the way seemed to have been extinguished. The space whirlpool caught his humongous body and severed the connection between him and Yi Futian. Terrifying tearing powers of space appeared between the two men, preventing Yi Futian from borrowing Wu Yong's powers. The Saint King of Gai sent a palm attack forward. It turned into boundless blades of space that tore through the air before him, clashing with the attacks from Wu Yong. Wu Yong's battle form was being wrecked bit by bit, and rapidly reducing back to its original form. Terrifying indeed. Such is the power of the Saint King of Gai. His powers of space are indeed at their very pinnacle. Many shuddered deep down. He had separated Wu Yong and Yi Futian, directly diminishing Wu Yong's combat prowess. It also rendered Yi Futian completely helpless. Zhu Kong and the others all paid close attention to the battlefield. They had been watching the battle even before the head Saint King of Gai acted. However, at the exact second when Wu Yong and Yi Futian were forcibly separated, they finally stepped out. 6 Holiness of Nirvanas emerged instantaneously. Their bodies descended from the sky and headed straight for Yi Futian. All 6 of them had terrifying powers. Their pressure permeated the space around them. Yi Futian sensed stifling pressure and nothing else. Shen Tianzhan, who was by his side, felt their intense, looming pressure as well. Bailey Qiu, the leader of the Bailey tribe, frowned. The Saint King of Gai was nothing short of a nightmare when he attacked. The Saint King of Gai shot a cold glance at Zhu Kong and the others when they moved. They had instigated him to make a move. They wanted to take Yi Futian away from him. Did you think that was possible? What are you people taking me for? He stepped forward, zipping through space. The 6 Holiness of Nirvanas descended within an instant, lashing out at Yi Futian. Boom! Terrifying pulling power grabbed at Yi Futian from below, sending him reeling back. Zhu Kong and the other 5 clashed with Shen Tianzhan and Bailey Qiu, sending the 2 of them flying backward. The 6 went straight for Yi Futian. However, there seemed to be a terrifying matrix of the Great Path lying in wait. A figure appeared behind Yi Futian. He stepped forward and stood before Yi Futian. The image of the matrix continued to grow and become extremely dazzling. Qian. The figure extended their hand and conjured an ancient symbol. It then transformed into a wall of the heavens blocking out the sky. Boom! The attacks from Zhu Kong and the others bombarded them. The matrix began to crack. They all looked at the handsome figure standing before Yi Futian. They were surprised to find yet another Holiness of Nirvana on the battlefield. Yi Futian turned to look at the figure before him and felt just as shocked. He'd been wondering where his elder brothers and Feishue had been training in the Crimson Dragon realm. Yen Yuan was standing right before him. Yen Yuan had appeared in front of him when he was in trouble. It was apparent that he'd known about the commotion. The fact that he was able to come to offer support meant that he had been observing from behind the scenes all the while. There had been many Holiness of Nirvanas around on that day. Many members of top forces were already there, so no one had paid extra attention to him as he'd lurked in the shadows. If Yi Futian had been able to take care of the fight himself, Yen Yuan probably would not have appeared. Elder brother, Yi Futian called out. I'm no longer your elder brother. Yen Yuan brought the powers of the deed of thorough comprehension to the very extreme. Wills of the Great Path coursed about in a frenzy across the image above them. The attacks from Zhu Kong and the others caused more and more cracks to appear on the image. Yi Futian did not say anything else. It did not matter what their relationship was anymore. Boom! The matrix shattered with a rumble, sending Yen Yuan's body reeling. He then grabbed Yi Futian and retreated. However, when he touched Yi Futian, he vaguely felt an eerily formidable power that sent tingles throughout his body. That was probably the thing that Yi Futian had acquired from Emperor Kua's ruins. He'd borrowed it to allow Wu Yong to fight at maximum capacity. Boom! The Sun God Sword zipped past. Run on your own. When Yen Yuan saw several Holiness of Nirvanas appearing, he knew that his hands were full. They would prevent him from guarding Yi Futian. He struggled to conjure a matrix of the Great Path again as he moved, but still managed to seal his surroundings for a moment. Move, a faraway voice said. Someone else appeared. It was yet another Holiness of Nirvana. It was yet another Holiness of Nirvana from Xiang City, as well as the Saint Lord of Juyang and the leader of the Chang clan from Jianmu City. They were all there to claim the relic of Emperor Kua. Things were clear at that moment. No one could have seen the eventual outcome. With so many holiness of nirvanas attacking, there was simply nowhere for Yi Futian to go. The relic of Emperor Kwa would fall into the hands of whoever managed to get to him. The mighty beings all ganged up on Yi Futian. Their auras were simply terrifying. He was done for. That was the thought that occurred to many who were watching from afar. There was simply no way Yi Futian would be able to escape in one piece under such circumstances. It seemed that the lineage of Emperor Kwa would prove to be his downfall. Yi Futian, who was basking in the divine fire of the sun, looked up at his pursuers. His eyes, which were wrapped in flames, looked extremely cold somehow. The imperial will within his life palace infused into his body. The fire spirit orb inside his life palace burst with dazzling light, resonating with his surroundings. Towering, dazzling lights burst out of his body in an instant, igniting a terrifying firestorm. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Raging flames swept around Yi Futian's body, as his might was felt throughout his surroundings. Those who were pursuing him halted in their tracks right away. Raging flames swept around Yi Futian's body, as his might was felt throughout his surroundings. Those who were pursuing him halted in their tracks right away. All of them glared at the figure basking in the divine fire before them. All of them felt a shuddering aura emanating from him. Yi Futian slowly rose to the air, hovering in the sky as if he was a lotus with its root severed. It was as if he was weightless. Flames burst in his eyes as his blood boiled within his body. The spinning sun spirit orb in his life palace burst with extremely brilliant light, as if it was about to burn his life spirits up. Boom! A raging aura of flames swept out from Yi Futian's body, flooding the entire sky and rolling far away. In that instant, the sky above Qinya City was drowned with auroras of flames. Everyone felt their hearts racing as they looked in Yi Futian's direction. It felt as if time had stopped altogether. Yi Futian seemed to be able to do more than lend his powers to Wu Yong. He seemed to be able to tap into that power, making use of the power of Emperor Kwa. Yi Futian, who was drifting in the air, looked up slowly and eyed the holiness of nirvanas who were there to kill him. He took a deep breath and said, "What does the lineage of Emperor Kwa have anything to do with you people? Why don't you leave a way out for all of us?" His eyes were burning as he spoke. Afterward, his body burned as well. His surroundings turned blood red. The sun in the sky shone on his body. Boundless auras of flames flowed into him from thousands of miles away. Yi Futian's body seemed to have turned into an extremely terrifying whirlpool, as if he had become a black hole of the sun, out to devour everything. His body seemed to be burning. Everyone around watched Yi Futian's twisted expression. He looked as if he was being subjected to painful torture in purgatory. He felt all of his organs enduring the intense burning from the flames. A low-pitched noise was heard coming from Yi Futian. Frightening flames shot from his eyes as he looked up at the boundless sky. "I'd like to call upon Emperor Kwa." A roar was heard as Yi Futian's body was buried in the towering flames. Boundless flames of the way coalesced into a solid form. The resulting enormous being that took his place was a legendary Renhuang. The hearts of many those present were racing, especially those from the 9 tribes. Zhu Kong looked up in awe at the solid form coming into view. The extremely towering body belonged to Emperor Kwa, who was emerging into the world again. Emperor Kwa descended upon the world, using Yi Futian's body. This can't be. Zhu Kong's face was incredibly twisted. What he was seeing right there was unbelievable. He was not the only one. Everyone from the 9 tribes trembled violently. Even the holiness of nirvanas were incapable of keeping their hearts from racing. Emperor Kwa had perished many years ago. It was simply impossible for him to descend into the world again. However, what was taking place before their eyes was undeniable. Yi Futian had summoned Emperor Kwa. He had conjured the form of Emperor Kwa using the boundless flames of the way. This is insane. The people watching the battle from afar felt their hearts race, as they wondered what they were seeing at that moment. Mighty ones from all over the Crimson Dragon realm had gathered at the battle that day, including many of the top-notch forces and holiness of Nirvana figures. They were all caught in the storm after fighting fierce battles. The storm became increasingly intense. Emperor Kwa was standing right before them. The battlefield turned silent all of a sudden. All the holiness of Nirvana, who had been fighting, stopped to look up at that figure. Flames continued to roar as the emperor's body high in the sky. He was like some bottomless hole. Yi Futian was somewhere within that incredibly tall and mighty figure. His entire being was being buried in flames. His world tree life spirit spread out in threads that enveloped his body, seeping into his veins as the imperial will went into full bloom. The blood in his veins continued to boil. He knew right away that he would have been able to make use of the borrowed powers as soon as he inherited the ruins of Emperor Kwa. However, he was simply too weak to do so effectively due to his current plane. As such, he had deliberately lent his powers to Wu Yong when the fighting broke out to let Wu Yong do the fighting, while Yi Futian had been unable to lend it all to Wu Yong. Due to the man's holiness of Nirvana level of powers, he'd been nonetheless able to bring his powers to the pinnacle of the holiness of Nirvana plane. Yi Futian simply had not expected the Saint King of Gai to make a move and sever the connection between the two of them. He'd run out of options and had resorted to summoning Emperor Kwa, using the power of the Great Path in his surroundings. His current plane meant that borrowing such terrifying powers would cost him greatly if he wasn't careful. He could die without even knowing how he'd died. There was no way he would have gone that far unless his hand was forced. This is not Emperor Kwa. It is simply a will left behind in the ruins, Zhu Kong said with a brimming voice. Everyone had been shocked by the scene before them. However, the emperor had indeed passed, and there was no way he could have been resurrected. Everyone came to their senses after hearing Zhu Kong's words. They understood that Zhu Kong was making sense. If Emperor Kwa had indeed come back to life, he would have been able to tear them to shreds with just one hand. Furthermore, he only has powers at the first level of sainthood. He could suffer from the recoil at any given moment. No one expected that the thing he acquired would allow him to summon the emperor again, Zhu Kong said as he walked. The greed in his eyes was becoming increasingly apparent. He had to get his hands on it. He deemed it a terrible waste to leave something like that with Yi Futian. If he inherited those powers, he would be able to tap into them during battle. If that happened, no one in Crimson Dragon Realm under Ren Huang would be able to fight him. If Zhu Kong harbored such thoughts, it was no surprise that others were thinking the same thing. The opportunity to become invincible among saints was right in front of them. So long as they were able to gain everything Yi Futian had acquired, they would be able to stand at the pinnacle of the saint plane. Other than that, it would also give them a chance to tap into the will of Ren Huang, making it possible for them to move towards that plane in the future. It was a temptation like no other. Those who were of the holiness of Nirvana level, especially those who were adept at fire powers, coveted it. Mightier ones felt their hands getting itchy. Somewhere far away, Xia Qingyuan and the others looked concerned. They no doubt understood that Yi Futian was borrowing the power of Emperor Kwa's lineage. If things got out of control, the consequences would be dire. Xia Qingyuan's eyes were ice cold as she shot a glance at those attempting to make a move. It was incredibly frustrating for her. Despite having become a saint, such a level of battles was only capable of being fought by the very pinnacle of holiness of Nirvanas. There was no way she would be able to interfere. The aftershocks of the fights between those people alone would have sufficed to destroy common saints. They were not even qualified to even get near the battlefield, let alone fight in it. The scorching rays of the sun were intense high above the sky. Zhu Kong gathered the flames of the great path from his surroundings. High above the sky and below the sun, an immensely huge divine sword of the sun appeared. He roared as he looked beneath him. The divine sword of the sun descended from the sky, heading straight for the enormous figure of Emperor Kwa. That tall and imposing figure lifted its arm and extended it toward the sky. Its arm turned into a terrifying whirlpool that began to tear everything in its immediate surroundings apart. It didn't even bother to block the sword coming down on it. Instead, it went on consuming the flames on the sword. The sword slashed into its arm, attempted to cut it down as the blade swung at the emperor's enormous body. However, gleaming flames of the way were conjured to melt the sword. The sword was gradually consumed by the huge figure. Zhu Kong's probing attack was consumed right away, causing him to look glum. The materialized figure of Emperor Kwa had developed the way of the flames, making flames entirely ineffective against it. While it was the true Emperor Kwa, it was nonetheless a construct conjured out of flames of the way. Boom! At that moment the tall, imposing figure suddenly stepped down. That enormous figure's head reached the heavens while its feet touched the ground. One step forward caused the ground to burn immediately, overwhelming the city in flames. The flames rushed into the sky. They were out to bury the entire battlefield in flames. The huge landmass was lifted and thrown through the air. That attack was imbued with boundless flames of the way, capable of melting everything. The flames in its palm burned as hot as the sun. The holiness of Nirvana who were closest to Futian were not those from the 6 tribes, but the 2 from Jianmu city. They were the Saint Lord of Juyang of the Shi clan, and the head of the Chong clan. As such, the terrifying attack had been launched first and foremost at those 2 holiness of Nirvanas. The Saint Lord of Juyang was surrounded by 9 suns, all of which burst with boundless light. They moved forward and continued to split, turning into millions of suns, and heading straight for that huge palm attack. He wanted to see just how powerful the figure of Emperor Kwa was. Boom! The suns all crumbled as the palm attack devoured the flames before continuing to press forward. The Saint Lord of Juyang's expression turned severe, wondering if flames would be entirely useless against that being. Boundless spears of the sun appeared behind the leader of the Chong clan, intending to pierce the huge palm. However, the result was the same. The spears were devoured, altogether useless. All flames were being devoured, regardless of type. Both of them stepped into the air and retreated. At that very moment, the huge palm attack quickly engulfed everything in their vicinity. A devouring whirlpool appeared at the center of the palm. Boom! The flames conjured by both men rushed at the whirlpool on the palm. Both of them felt as if they were about to be devoured by that palm. Both men turned glum and retreated even more quickly. The palm continued to extend forward, blocking out the sky as the flames on their bodies roared. They were being sucked into the whirlpool in a frenzy. It was as if the whirlpool was trying to suck their flames dry. The situation was so severe that even the sun life spirits around the Saint Lord of Juyang were about to be devoured. Melt! A cold voice said from within figure of Emperor Kwa. Its huge palm trembled as boundless flames of the way shot out from the devouring whirlpool, engulfing the place and shrouding the 2 holiness of Nirvanas in boundless flames of the way. That huge palm seemed to be spitting flames from the body of Emperor Kwa. The bodies of the Saint Lord of Juyang and the leader of the Chong clan were buried by the flames. Be one! The Saint Lord of Juyang shouted as he took his divine body of 9 suns form. A dazzling sun shot out of the flames and flew into the sky. However, his heart continued to race. Even his arms were trembling. His divine body of 9 suns had almost been devoured. The great elder of the Chong clan was not as fortunate. He let out shrill, eerie shrieks as he was buried in the flames. He wanted to burst out, but the palm continued to spit flames of the way, burning away his body and soul. I give up! The great elder of the Chong clan shouted. His body began to disintegrate. He was about to disappear at any moment. Too late. The voice that replied was a cold one. It sounded like the voice of death itself. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Countless eyes turned in that direction. Boundless flames of the way burst from the enormous palm, sealing the great elder of the Chong clan within. Countless eyes turned in that direction. Boundless flames of the way burst from the enormous palm, sealing the great elder of the Chong clan within. The great elder of the Chong clan let out a shrill howl, as rumbling noises were heard from within the flames. He took the form of a huge god of war. However, he was still being consumed. His body was rapidly losing its form. It was as if he was no longer a being of a solid body. Instead, his body was made of flames. Clan leader. All the people of the Chong clan turned pale at the sight. Chong Huai, who had once entered the ruins of Emperor Kwa, was the palest of them all. Their clan leader's body was gradually turning to nothing. Everything around him was on the verge of melting down. The flames bursting from the clan leader's body were being consumed. An ethereal being was about to burst from the flames with a howl. However, bursts of golden divine flames were descending, causing that specter of a being to howl again. No! The great elder of the Chang clan continued to howl. He looked at Yi Futian with a terrified expression. He could only see Emperor Kua's silhouette, tall and proud. The clan leader was a top-notch figure in Crimson Dragon Realm, as well as a holiness of Nirvana. He was the clan leader of a very renowned clan in Jianmu City. He was about to die. A young man on the proving holiness level had tapped into external powers, taking the form of Emperor Kua to cook him to death. The treasure was left behind by Emperor Kua, but you nonetheless need to be alive to take it, the tall, imposing figure said in a voice that reverberated throughout the space, causing the hearts of countless people to race. Even the holiness of Nirvanas felt this threat to their lives. Yi Futian was terrifying, even more than when he had been lending his powers to Wu Yong. It was no wonder that he had been so confident before. He was able to lend his powers to Wu Yong, but he was also fully capable of fighting alone. If the leaders of the former 7 tribes, Wu Yong and Shen Tianzhan, had been there would not have been any problems. However, given that so many mighty beings were joining the battle, and even the Saint King of Gai making a move, Yi Futian's hands were indeed being forced. Boom! A raging rumble was heard. The body of the great elder of the Chang clan was completely consumed in the frightening flames. His body was reduced to a ball of fire. No! The mighty members of the Chang clan yelled. Their faces were very pale. Their clan's leader had been killed. Their eyes fixed on those flames. They wondered what being a holiness of Nirvana meant to them anymore. Having a holiness of Nirvana in their midst meant that they had the chance to bag a city and become lords. It would have enabled them to create their own clan and establish a top-notch force. The reason why the Chang clan had been able to gain such prestige in Jianmu City was simple. They had the greatest power backing them, a holiness of Nirvana. In the world of cultivation, having top-notch combat prowess meant everything. Their clan leader had been killed. This meant that the Chang clan was now off the list of top-notch forces. All the industries they had in Jianmu City would be taken away by others. There was no way for them to keep control of all their industries. Furthermore, there would be other dire consequences to deal with, such as the many enemies that would be eyeing the wealth of their clan. Every single person and force that they had offended before was waiting to do them harm. The death of their clan leader represented nothing less than a disaster. The Saint Lord of Juyang looked down on the vanishing body in the air and felt a chill running down his spine. He wondered what would have happened if he'd been the one getting cooked to death. The fighting stopped all of a sudden. Yin Yuan turned around to look at where Yi Futian was. He sensed a harrowing aura in Yi Futian when he was near. The power emanating from his now gave him the same feeling. It surprisingly felt like the mysterious power residing within Fei Xue's body. He wondered if the treasure that Yi Futian had acquired from Emperor Kua's ruins was something similar to whatever was inside Fei Xue's body. His teacher had sealed the power in Fei Xue's body, never letting Fei Xue use it for training. His teacher had been afraid of the consequences that would result, fearing that it would exceed what Fei Xue could endure. At present, Yi Futian was cornered enough that he'd had to tap into such powers to do battle. If the recoil was more severe than expected, the consequences would be dire. Read the next chapter on our VIP novel. Yin Yuan wondered how Yi Futian was able to endure using such powers. If Fei Xue tried to pull off what Yi Futian had pulled, he was sure that the likelihood of her death would have been over 90%. He'd been able to deduce that from how Fei Xue tapped into the power of that thing inside her to train. Yi Futian had to be severely cornered by the many holiness of Nirvanas. To perform such a feat, things would not have come to this otherwise. An elder appeared in the distant sky. He looked down at the battlefield with a faint smile on his lips. He found it interesting that Yi Futian had succeeded in inheriting Emperor Kua's ruins. However, he found so many holiness of Nirvanas ganging up on their junior to be rather unsightly. Even after stepping into the holiness of Nirvana level, they still wanted to become invincible on such a plane. If they succeeded in becoming invincible on the holiness of Nirvana plane, they would probably want to get to the Runhuang plane next. The further one's journey into cultivation went, the greater their yearning for greater planes would become. It was because they had already seen things that were so beautiful that they wanted to reach higher heights to see more. This is not Emperor Qua. This is just a specter that he conjured using the treasure's power. Do not get near him, Zhu Kong said. He too felt a tinge of fear and panic inside him. If they gave up them, it would be a catastrophe for the tribes. There was simply no way Yi Futian could just let the 6 tribes go, especially not after all the fighting they had done that day. Their only way forward was to kill Yi Futian. Yi Futian's continued existence would pose a great threat to them. They needed to take him out. Yi Futian glanced at the leaders of the 6 tribes. The eyes of Emperor Qua turned to the leader of the Vermilion Bird tribe. A terrifying aura of sharpness emanated from him. You wretched beast. You see your emperor in front of you, and you refuse to submit? The huge figure shouted. He fired a terrifying will into the mind of the being. The clan leader felt a chill run through him, making him balk. He felt rather dazed at that moment. It was as if he was facing the emperor himself. You once served as my steed. You should have stuck with your mission, and aided the one inheriting my powers. I shall give you one more chance. If you're willing to serve me and kill Zhu Kong, all of your crimes of the past shall be absolved, another voice said, reverberating throughout the place. The look in the eyes of the leader of the Vermilion Bird tribe suggested that he was struggling with the decision. He naturally understood that the one speaking was Yi Futian. He realized that Yi Futian was pretending to be the emperor by mimicking the emperor's tone. However, Yi Futian was attempting to spare him as well. If he changed his stance right there, and then, it might be possible for him to come out in one piece. He hesitated. Can't you see that he is playing you for a fool? Zhu Kong asked, looking at the Vermilion Bird tribe leader. He was surprised to see that the other tribe leader was hesitating. The Vermilion Bird tribe leader was still hesitating. Wu Yong had been the first one to submit to Yi Futian, and Wu Yong had become a holiness of nirvana. The Bailey tribe decided to do the same, and stand together with Yi Futian. Why were they all doing this? Yi Futian had been able to inherit the ruins of Emperor Qua. After the battle they had fought that day, there was no doubt that Yi Futian's talents were immense. He would probably become the next Emperor Qua. The reason that they had all thought only of taking the power from him instead of submitting was that he was believed to be too weak to be the new emperor. However, that thought seemed to be changing. Furthermore, Yi Futian was giving him a chance to change his mind. While he was able to tap into Emperor Qua's powers and bring this much combat prowess to bear at the moment, it is obvious that he is duping you because he is not confident in his ability to fight any further. Don't fall into his trap, Zhu Kong said to everyone with a brimming voice. The power of Yi Futian's side continued to grow. If the Vermilion Bird tribe leader decided to balk and switch sides, then the 9 tribes would have only 5 left. Yi Futian would have 3 tribes on his side. You now have a chance. If things were already set, what use would I have of you? Emperor Qua said yet again. The eyes of the Vermilion Bird tribe leader kept shifting. If he were truly able to take Yi Futian down in such a situation, would he be able to get anything left behind by Emperor Qua? That wasn't certain. Among the 6 remaining tribes, the Zhu clan and the Zhong tribe were the most powerful. Furthermore, others might also be getting a share. However, helping Yi Futian would be risky. He was considering what would happen if Yi Futian's side lost in this tug of war. He was considering if the Zhu clan and the other tribes would still want to settle the score with him by then. All right. The Vermilion Bird tribe leader gritted his teeth and made his decision. He flashed and lashed out at Zhu Kong in the air. He'd made his decision, and now he needed to show that he was sincere. Zhu Kong had not expected yet another tribe to switch sides. He stepped forward and headed straight for the Vermilion Bird tribe leader. Other than the Zhu clan and the Zhong tribe, are there any who wish to submit? Yi Futian asked. If any tribe wishes to submit, each side will have 4 tribes each. Regardless of how the battle ends, there will always be 4 tribes standing on one side. If that were the case, there wouldn't be any need for further concerns. After the Vermilion Bird tribe, there were still the Nonli tribe, the Raven tribe, and the Zhu tribe left. There is still one place left. Any tribe that decides to submit to me will receive the powers of Emperor Qua to aid their training, Yi Futian said. Despite having killed a holiness of nirvana to shock everyone, there were still too many enemies for him to take on at once. The situation was still dangerous for him. Even if he could defeat all of his enemies, it would be impossible for him to kill all of them. There was also the future to consider. As such, he needed powerful forces to submit to him. His powers at the moment were shocking. That, coupled with the lineage of Emperor Kwa, made this a very good opportunity for him. He realized that most of the tribes were simply being forced to commit at the moment. As such, what he wanted to do now was give them a push and an opportunity. Xiaqing Yuan, who was watching Yi Futian from the distance, found that Yi Futian was being far more composed in dealing with matters than he'd ever been in the past. Even at such a critical moment, he was thinking not of slaughtering his enemies, but of giving them the choice to submit to him. That would benefit his future endeavors in Crimson Dragon Realm a great deal in the long run. If he were to be able to get command over greater tribes of the western region, then there would be fewer forces capable of shaking him in the future. What was happening on that day would not happen again. She understood that there was no way Yi Futian could simply fight like this every time. If he recoiled, it would be extremely devastating. I have witnessed Emperor Kwa's lineage today, and I believe that you, Lord Yi, have earned the late Emperor's approval. We of the 9 tribes have always belonged to Emperor Kwa. As such, the Nanli tribe is willing to submit to you, and to aid you in bringing the former glory of Emperor Kwa's era into reality again. The leader of the Nanli tribe made his decision right there and then. The expression on Zhu Kong and the rest's faces were extremely gloomy and ugly. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Out of the top figures of the 9 tribes, 1 had been killed by Yi Futian. 8 of the top figures remained. Out of the top figures of the 9 tribes, 1 had been killed by Yi Futian. 8 of the top figures remained, with the Nanli tribe leader and the Vermilion Bird tribe leader submitting to him. 4 tribes were choosing to side with Yi Futian and acknowledge his place as the successor to Emperor Kwa. They were willing to work with him. The powers of both sides were almost equal, with 4 tribes standing on each side. No one had anticipated that things would turn out this way. When the 7 tribes led their armies to attack Yi Futian, everyone had thought that the battle would be a slaughter. Furthermore, with more and more people joining the fray and ganging up on Yi Futian, it seemed as if he had made enemies everywhere. A man's ruin was brought by the wealth he possessed. The relic of Emperor Kwa that Yi Futian had should have been his downfall. However, no one could have anticipated what had transpired. The forces on Yi Futian's side were actually growing stronger. Furthermore, Yi Futian had tapped into the will of Emperor Kwa and come to possess some extremely formidable combat abilities. Everyone present understood that, if not for Yi Futian putting up such a show of force, he would have never gotten 2 other Holiness of Nirvanas to switch sides. The Vermilion Bird tribe leader fought with Zhu Kong. At the same time, the Nanli tribe leader headed straight for Zhonglu. The Bailey tribe leader fought with the Raven tribe leader, while Wu Yong turned his attention at the Zhu tribe leader. Wu Yong began walking toward his opponent. The upcoming battle was no doubt going to be a civil war between the 8 tribes. Regardless of how the battle would end, one thing was clear. The 9 tribes of Emperor Kwa would be no more. There would definitely be one side reigning supreme after this fight. The balance of things that had been maintained for ages was about to shift completely. All of this was due solely to the presence of Yi Futian. However, no one knew yet if it would be the Zhu clan annexing the Wu clan, or Yi Futian leading 9 new tribes to rule over the western region. The raging battles continued to be fought. The Saint King of Gai watched the events unfold with a glum expression. Indeed, nothing had happened as expected. Someone like Yu Sheng had emerged out of Crimson Dragon Realm in that generation. There was Yi Futian to consider as well. It became apparent that the Xing brothers had met their rivals. Xing Kai, who was in the regional king ranking, might not have been as stressed in this situation. Xing Qiu, on the other hand, had lost to Yu Sheng in the Battle of Crimson River. Both Yi Futian and Yu Sheng would have become quite a pair of obstacles in their journeys of cultivation. The Saint King of Gai took one step into the air, heading towards the Emperor Kwa's specter without the slightest bit of reservation. It was a show of absolute confidence in his own powers. Gai Huang, You dare to bully a member of the younger generation despite your level of training, and yet you still call yourself a holiness of nirvana? A lazy voice was heard from somewhere in the air. Gai Huang's brow twitched as an elder appeared before him. It was just an unassuming old man. Gai Huang frowned when the old man narrowed his eyes and smirked. The star-plucking saint, Gai Huang said, recalling the name. He condescendingly asked, "So, you have recovered? And you dare stand in front of me again? My injuries are none of your concern. At the very least, I have no problem taking you on." The old man who'd appeared was the star-plucking saint, a figure who was extremely versed in the art of transformation. He was known to be peerless in both transformations and speed. The star-plucking saint. Everyone who was listening to the conversation between these two figures shuddered deep down. Yet another legendary figure of the Crimson Dragon realm had appeared. The name of the star-plucking saint was known everywhere. It was also apparent that he was siding with Yi Futian. Many wondered when the star-plucking saint had gotten acquainted with Yi Futian, the saint lord of Juyang and Xichuan, who was watching from afar, sported glum expressions. They knew that the flames of the Wei belonging to the Shi clan had been stolen by the star-plucking saint. Furthermore, he'd then given the flames to Yi Futian. That act led to the scene taking place. If it had not been for the star-plucking saint handing the flames to Yi Futian personally, he might not have participated in the event, which in turn meant that he would not have entered the ancestral land of the 9 tribes and acquired the lineage of Emperor Kwa. As such, it could be said that the star-plucking saint was the one who had single-handedly brought forth what was happening. First, he handed the flames of the Wei to Yi Futian. Then he showed up on the battlefield again. Many wondered what was he up to by doing all of that. Furthermore, what the Saint King of Gai said meant that the star-plucking saint had sustained injuries before. That probably had a lot to do with the ancient imperial city. They were wondering if the rumors had been true. If the star-plucking saint had fought with the 9th servant, the city lord of the ancient imperial city, and was injured in the fight. Read the next chapter on our VIP novel. That so? Gai Huang said condescendingly. He stepped forth and grabbed at the air. An enormous golden handprint shot forward, heading straight for the star-plucking saint. The handprint shrouded the entire place, filled with terrifying shredding powers. It was as if the entire space was about to be torn to pieces. Boom! A loud rumble was heard as the star-plucking turned into a body of stars. A holy ring of the great path glittered. Dazzling lights of the stars coursed about and merged with his body. Terrifying space-shredding powers tore away, crushing the external shell of stars and tearing at the star-plucking saint. It was still unable to crush all the stars in one go. As holiness of nirvanas, their plane had long ago melded with the great path. Death could come with only a single thought. Both attacks and defenses were done at harrowing magnitudes. Stars burst out around the star-plucking saint all of a sudden. All of them were of great size. The place seemed to have turned into a world on its own. Rumbling noises were heard as extremely harrowing powers were born, causing even people standing quite far away to tremble. As implied by his name, the star-plucking saint was able to pluck stars with his hands. Boom! Gai Huang zipped past in the air, ready to escape the place right there and then. The star-plucking saint extended his hand and grabbed at the air. The entire vast area seemed to be literally within his grasp. His body disappeared unbelievably quickly. It was worth noting that the star-plucking saint was peerless when it came to speed. Boom! Both figures moved at extreme speeds, arriving high above the sky right from the ground within the blink of an eye. The Saint King of Gai's plane made it, so that he was able to traverse extremely vast distances within a moment. However, when he reached his destination, he still found the stars all around him. Gai Huang glared at the star-plucking saint and said, "So, by plucking the stars with your hands, you can get the world in your palm. Not bad. You've apparently heard of what I'm capable of. If you're interested in becoming my student, I could teach you," the old man said with a smile, sounding unbridled. "You lost at the hands of the renowned 9th servant, yet you are offering to be my teacher," Gai Huang jabbed sarcastically. Boundless golden lights burst through the air, shooting all around his surroundings. "Why are you bullying a kid?" The old man smirked without care. He waved his hand around, and an enormous star appeared, seemingly conjured by the great path itself. It charged straight at Gai Huang. Their surroundings rattled. The extremely huge star wanted to kill everything. Countless people in Qianye City looked up and saw the star falling from the sky. All of them were extremely shocked. The star-plucking saint and the Saint King of Gai were both top-notch figures known throughout the Crimson Dragon realm. The battle between them was nothing short of horrifying. The storm in Qianye City was also getting increasingly frightening. Humph. Gai Huang smirked coldly. He stood tall and proud as dazzling light coursed over his body. The will of the great path of space shrouded their surroundings. Even though that huge star was about to crash down on him, he stood his ground without any intention of evading or blocking. He lifted his arm and pointed just as the star was about to fall on him. Boundless dazzling wills of the great path of space enveloped their surroundings, slowing the star down. The body of the star seemed to be engulfed by the light of space. Gai Huang stepped out again and pointed at the star directly. The will of the great path burst into the star immediately. Boundless dazzling lights caused the star to emit a blinding brilliance, crumbling apart with a loud rumble. The star-plucking saint was unfettered as he looked on calmly. He then waved his hand, causing all the stars to fall toward Gai Huang like comets. Gai Huang's body looked quite puny and insignificant when compared to the vastness of the area of stars around him. That attack, the hearts of the people watching raced. The aura of both men fighting high above in the air felt stifling to all of them. There was hardly anyone paying to the other battles happening below by then. Yu Sheng and many others who were not fighting were ignoring everything else. However, at that moment, Yu Sheng turned to look in another direction. Xing Qiu sensed something from far away. He frowned when he noticed Yu Sheng glaring at him. Yu Sheng's stout frame burst into the air at the very next moment. Rumbling noises were heard all over the place. On the chaotic battlefield where holiness of nirvanas fought, Yu Sheng charged straight at Xing Qiu. The outcome of the Battle of Crimson River was final. Still, Xing Qiu instigated Gai Huang to participate in the battle. Furthermore, Xing Qiu had fought in that battle in the past. As such, Yu Sheng saw no need to hold back against Yu Sheng. Xing Qiu's expression changed slightly. He was there for the Saint King of Gai that day. His status and the Saint King of Gai's strength meant that no one dared to make a move against him. However, at that very moment, someone was making a move against him. Boom! Raging auras burst forward in an instant. Xing Qiu resonated with the Great Path, as rings of the Great Path dazzled above him, generating extremely potent power. Boom! Another rumble was heard. Yu Sheng moved like a devil of unparalleled strength as he traversed the space. A huge shadow of the devil appeared behind him, looking imposing and brimming with energy. He then threw a punch that could tear through space itself. Countless wills of the fist burst from the huge, imposing devil, tearing through space and landing on Xing Qiu's body. Yu Sheng's fights had always been straightforward and overwhelming, lacking the slightest hint of flourish and fluff. All there was to him was power and overwhelming strength. He burst forward with raging strength. He was about to tear through anyone who dared to stand in his way. Xing Qiu roared and brought his will of the fist down on Yu Sheng. He threw a palm attack at the same time, feeling a god of war, attempting to block Yu Sheng's advance. Boom! Raging rumbles were heard. The defense crumbled altogether, as Yu Sheng's raging body continued to burst forward like a bolt of lightning. Everyone saw Xing Qiu's body go flying away a moment later. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Xing Qiu rose from the ground and wiped the blood off of the corner of his mouth, looking at Yu Sheng, who continued to press forward. A ritual implement was seen in his hand, emanating a brilliant ring of light that melded with his arm. Xing Qiu rose from the ground and wiped the blood off of the corner of his mouth, looking at Yu Sheng, who continued to press forward. A ritual implement was seen in his hand, emanating a brilliant ring of light that melded with his arm. Rings of light swept through his surroundings in an instant. Will of the great path of an even greater magnitude descended. A stifling pressure permeated throughout the space with Xing Qiu's body as the center. Even though he had been defeated by Yu Sheng before, he had never used ritual implements to do battle with him. However, he deemed Yu Sheng to simply be too much to handle, what with the other party targeting him specifically. The way Yu Sheng came at him suggested that Yu Sheng wanted him dead. Xingqiu was born and raised in ancient imperial city. Few in the Crimson Dragon realm would dare to try to take his life. There was a handful who dared to get on the bad side of the city lord of ancient imperial city, the number one city outside of Crimson Dragon City. However, Xingqiu could feel that Yu Sheng was simply a lunatic and an absolute exception. He had trained in the regional palace and was ranked in the regional king ranking. The fact that he was daring to pull something like this off was insane. Going about business the way he saw fit, leaving behind reservations and restraint, was just how Yu Sheng did things. Towering demonic might swept all over the place. Xingqiu then saw a huge demonic palm print bearing down on him. He stepped forward as lights burst from both of his arms, colliding with the incoming attack. Boom! A huge rumble was heard as the huge palm print was severed. Yu Sheng took a look at Xingqiu with his pitch-black eyes. He knew that the other party had made use of powerful ritual implements, amplifying the attack's power exponentially. However, he charged forward without the slightest hint of hesitation. Demonic might rolled over and shrouded the place. His eyes turned pitch-black like a bottomless pit. When Xingqiu saw Yu Sheng's eyes, he felt as if he was looking at a devil. This was the world of the demons, and there seemed to be demonic generals standing around the devil itself. All of them submitted to the devil without question. Xingqiu actually felt an urge to kneel and worship the devil before him, as if Yu Sheng was the true manifestation of the devil itself, demanding that he lay prostrate and submit to it. That feeling was insulting, but also one that inspired awe. None of that was an illusion. Xingqiu's level of training allowed him to determine right away that Yu Sheng had been born as a demon. He was destined to become a demonic lord reigning supreme. This being had also trained in the terrifying demonic arts, causing him to feel what he felt. It was worth noting that Xingqiu was a descendant of a Renhuang, yet he was nonetheless overwhelmed by Yu Sheng in a match of wills. Xingqiu was wondering about Yu Sheng's background. Yu Sheng did not pay any heed to the thoughts in Xingqiu's mind. His raging demonic aura conjured multiple devilish halberds. He then roared and brought the halberds tearing through the air with overwhelming might. Every single halberd streaked through space and caused a series of sonic booms. Their devastating might as they streaked through the air inspired nothing but dread. Xingqiu also roared and took his battle form, stepping out and clashing with the attacks. He had already brandished his ritual implement. There was no way he could simply back away. Furthermore, there was nowhere for him to back away to. Both men fought ferociously. Countless pairs of eyes turned to look at the battlefield where the two of them fought. The battle between Yu Sheng and Xingqiu was not even remotely as astonishing as the one going on up in the sky, where the star-plucking saint and the saint of king were fighting. The power being wielded on both battlefields were of different orders of magnitude altogether. But both Yu Sheng and Xingqiu were extremely renowned members of the younger generation nonetheless. They would probably become figures like the Saint King of Gai, or the star-plucking saint in the future. Yu Sheng might become stronger than both of them in the future. He was, after all, ranked in the regional king ranking. Anyone at his plane who ranked on the regional king ranking was considered a nigh-invincible being. Even the likes of the star-plucking saint and the Saint King of Gai had never made it into the regional king ranking. Such was the testament to the difficulty of getting ranked in the regional king ranking. At present, including Yu Sheng, there were only 18 saints ranked in the regional king ranking. The Saint Lord of Juyang took a look at the other battlefields. He flinched at what he was seeing. He had never anticipated that things would turn out like this. He thought that the scene would spiral downwards, devolving into a fight between many for the lineage of Emperor Kwa and the treasure. Qianye City would have been insignificant in comparison. There was no way Yi Futian would have been able to keep what he had gotten intact. Even the members of the 9 tribes would have been able to get rid of Yi Futian easily, let alone the many mighty figures from all over the Crimson Dragon realm joining the fray. Even if the forces of Emperor Xia's realm were to join in the fray, unless they were able to mobilize all of the realm's powers, there would be no way for them to keep things in their favor. That was something that would have been impossible to pull off. No one would have anticipated something like this happening right before their eyes. Even the star-plucking saint had made his move, fighting the Saint King of Gai. He was utterly incapable of predicting what would happen from then on out. The outcome of the battle was utterly uncertain. No one knew how things would turn out. He'd once thought that Yi Futian would end up dead as a result of this confrontation. It would not have mattered even if he was unable to take the treasure. It was an opportunity, and he saw fit to seize the chance. The consequences didn't matter, even if he failed. However, things had changed. If he were to continue fighting, and Yi Futian's side emerged as the victor, the consequences would certainly matter, judging by the powers that Yi Futian would be able to wield by then. Consequences would actually be very severe for the losing side. Every single holiness of Nirvana, who was as powerful as the likes of the Saint Lord of Juyang, felt shaken at that moment. All of them hesitated. They couldn't decide if they should press forward or retreat. If they retreated and left Yi Futian large, they would have to worry about him coming back to settle the score with all of them. "Father, let's retreat," Shichan said telepathically to the Saint Lord of Juyang from a distance. With events having taken such a turn, there was simply no need to continue fighting. The Saint Lord of Juyang was still hesitating. A figure stood before him. It was Yan Yuan. He was standing guard before the Saint Lord of Juyang. Yi Futian, who had taken the form of a god of war of flames, turned around at that moment, looking at the holiness of Nirvana, who had ambushed him before. That holiness of Nirvana from Xiang City had arrived with Xiang Nan. He was a mighty figure from Emperor Xiang's realm. He had apparently intended to join the fray without revealing himself, killing Yi Futian, and taking the treasure of Emperor Kwa for himself. That towering god of war of flames turned to look at the holiness of Nirvana from Emperor Xiang's realm, causing him to frown as he sensed a threat looming over him. Yi Futian summoned the will of Emperor Kwa, before the holiness of Nirvana was able to retaliate, conjuring the form of Emperor Kwa. The holiness of Nirvana cursed deep down. If he had been able to foresee all of this, he would not have decided to join in the fray. From the looks of the figure's eyes, it was clear that the holiness of Nirvana had been marked. They still had scores to settle from the last round. During the battle between the forces of Emperor Xia's realm and Emperor Li's realm, Xiang Nan had brought people to Qianya City, seemingly to threaten Yi Futian. At that moment, it was a case of scores piling up on top of each other. Xiang Nan, who was far away, seemed to notice what Yi Futian was up to. He frowned. Yi Futian, at that moment, was no longer himself. He had summoned Emperor Kwa, which posed a grave threat. At that very moment, Yi Futian and Emperor Kwa's form turned into the divine eyes of the sun, casting a gaze that caused the holiness of Nirvana from Xiang City to feel as if he was being engulfed by a dazzling sun. The rays of the sun rained down as flames of the way descended, burning him to nothingness. Boom! A loud rumble was heard as lightning crackled overhead. His body zipped by like a bolt of lightning. Yi Futian was the only one who knew what he was getting himself into. The pressure of summoning a being like Emperor Kwa at his current plane was immensely stressful. The greater the powers that he wielded, the greater the burden it was on him. It was as predicted by many. Any mishap could easily cause him to be destroyed by the recoil. That was why he'd allowed the Vermilion Bird tribe and the Nonli tribe to side with him. If he was able to kill everything before him without restraint and suffer no repercussions, he might have actually done so. However, he knew that, even though summoning the will of Emperor Kwa had given him formidable powers, at the end of the day, those powers were not his to keep. At the very least, he needed to leave some holiness of Nirvana's behind to serve as deterrents to people eyeing the lineage of Emperor Kwa. At that moment, he cranked the powers into a frenzy. The sky and the earth scorched red-hot. The fire spirit orb in his body emanated brilliant light. The flames of his surroundings howled, as if they were burning like the sun. Countless people looked at Yi Futian and felt rattled to the core. That power was nothing short of harrowing. Let's get out. The holiness of Nirvana from Xiang City sensed how terrifying that power was. He then shouted at Xiang Nan and the others, "Your Highness, let's go." Some mighty figures made a snap decision and took Xiang Nan away. Xiang Nan's expression changed somewhat, and he looked very glum. He couldn't believe that he was about to run away. He turned around and looked at the battlefield, finding an enormous face appearing in the sky. It was the face of Emperor Kwa. An arm descended from above. The boundlessly huge arm seemed to be a manifestation of flames of the way. It blocked out the sky and swatted at the holiness of Nirvana. That mighty being roared. His entire body was clad in lightning as he burst through the clouds. Brilliant light burst from his body as he moved faster than a bolt of lightning. Still, that destructive will was getting closer. Boom! A huge pillar of lightning shot into the sky, tearing everything apart. The extremely huge flaming hand clapped down from above, causing rumbles to be heard everywhere. The beam that shot into the sky clashed with the flames. The beam had actually torn an opening in the hand from above, intending to disintegrate the attacking hand. The hand of flames continued to solidify, scorching the sky red-hot like fire from lava. It continued to press downward, overpowering the pillar of lightning by sheer brute force. "Get lost!" The holiness of Nirvana roared. His body burst with 9 dazzling beams and blasted at the power that was pressing him down. That scene was extremely harrowing. The spirit orb in Yi Futian's body burst with extremely formidable powers, causing Emperor Kwa's body to resonate with his surroundings. Raging fires were brought forth with a rumble. The 9 beams of lightning transformed into beams of lightning and fire, burning together with the conjured flames. Intense flames scorched the sky in an instant. The holiness of Nirvana from Xiang City looked despaired as he said, "Please have mercy, Lord Yi." Boom! Terrifying powers washed over the area. Eerie shrieks were heard as the holiness of Nirvana was flooded by the destructive light. "No!" Xiang Nan, who was running, turned around just in time to witness the harrowing scene. His face was ashen. How could this have happened? The holiness of Nirvana, who had followed him from Emperor Xiang's realm, had died in Qinya City. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Your Highness, let's go. The mighty ones at Xiang Nan's side took him and continued moving forward. Despite being a considerable distance away from the city lord's office by then, the flames on top of their heads remained. Your Highness, let's go. The mighty ones at Xiang Nan's side took him and continued moving forward. Despite being a considerable distance away from the city lord's office by then, the flames on top of their heads remained. The sky above Qinya City had been tainted red. It seemed that they would only be safe if they left Qinya City. Xiang Nan turned around to look at the face in the distant sky. His expression was bone-chillingly cold. Yi Futian had killed their holiness of Nirvana. The Xiang City was still backed by Emperor Xiang's realm, meaning that it was still, without a doubt, an imperial realm. Even if Yi Futian was able to tap into Emperor Kwa's will, he was nonetheless still at the proving holiness level. However, he dealt the killing blow without hesitation, killing a holiness of Nirvana from Emperor Xiang's realm in Qinya City. A holiness of Nirvana was of extreme importance to their respective imperial realm. Without that one holiness of Nirvana around, Emperor Xiang's realm would not be able to keep Xiang City in the Crimson Dragon realm intact, unless Xiang Nan was to assign another holiness of Nirvana from Emperor Xiang's realm. However, he would lose all face in the imperial court back home if he were to do so. His father would probably be immensely disappointed with him. Xiang Nan's fists clenched at that thought. He looked increasingly grim. He vowed to get revenge for what had happened. Everyone around the city lord's office had seen yet another holiness of Nirvana die. All of them were incredibly shaken. That was a holiness of Nirvana after all. While there were indeed many holiness of Nirvanas found in the Crimson Dragon realm, the realm itself was not so big that the loss of one was insignificant. Furthermore, the Crimson Dragon realm itself was the primary realm of the Crimson Dragon region, where powerful figures from all the realms gathered. Even so, holiness of Nirvanas were still at the pinnacle of powerful beings. They were figures capable of stabilizing a region, serving as city lords, or even establishing top-notch forces. At this point, Yi Futian had killed 2 holiness of Nirvanas, adding the one that Wu Yong killed before, the Shang tribe leader. To the count, 3 holiness of Nirvanas had fallen in battle. That battle had truly made any mighty figures who had not yet joined the fray think twice. The tables had turned completely. Yi Futian's forces had gone against the odds. They seemed to be the ones with the advantage. If Yi Futian went into battle personally, it would be disastrous for anyone taking him on. The Saint Lord of Juyang finally made his decision after seeing the holiness of Nirvana from Xiang City fall. He turned his eyes toward the god of war and fire, gritting his teeth as he charged. Yen Yuan wanted to stop him, but he quickly realized that the Saint Lord of Juyang was not heading toward Yi Futian. Instead, he was heading towards another battlefield. He was heading toward the battlefield where Wu Yong was fighting the Zhu tribe's leader. However, Yen Yuan nonetheless made a move and followed him, concerned about the Saint Lord of Juyang acting against Wu Yong. Extremely dazzling rays of the sun appeared. The divine body of 9 suns form taken by the Saint Lord of Juyang burned brightly. His body seemed to be a manifestation of the sun itself. Boom! The space rattled as he threw a punch, as scorching as the sun itself. 9 suns shone brilliantly as they bombarded someone. The aura bursting from Yin Yuan was terrifying, as it tried to stop the Saint Lord of Juyang's attack. However, he was baffled by the target of the Saint Lord of Juyang's attacking, causing him to pause and cease interfering. In yet another area of the battle, the Zhu tribe leader's face changed. He was fighting full force against Wu Yong, and was the one at an advantage. Wu Yong had not made a breakthrough yet. Despite receiving help from Yi Futian, and inheriting the lineage of Emperor Qua, he was unable to process the powers enough to enhance his combat prowess. However, when both men were still locked in an intense battle, a formidable sense of crisis looming over the Zhu tribe leader. He turned around immediately, intending to leave the battlefield, but Wu Yong quickly took the form of divine eyes of the sun, and threw his arms out, blocking his way. "Get away from me!" The Zhu tribe leader roared as he clashed with Wu Yong. He was sent reeling back again. However, at almost the very same moment, the dazzling fist will of the sun came down. The scorching heat of the sun quickly engulfed him. The Zhu tribe leader turned around, intending to retaliate, but his arm was still being penetrated by the incoming fist will, hitting him hard on the chest. He felt as if his chest had been punched through by the flames at that instant. At that very moment, he sensed another looming danger behind him. Wu Yong saw no sense in letting the opportunity slip through his fingers. He threw a handprint down on the Zhu tribe leader's head. At that very moment, the Zhu tribe leader felt as if his entire body had been set on fire. He uttered a terrified shriek. The Saint Lord of Juyang did not stop there. He launched another fist shortly after, preventing the Zhu tribe leader from recovering. The Zhu tribe leader glared at the Saint Lord of Juyang. His eyes were filled with intense hatred. As the leader of the Shi clan, the Saint Lord of Juyang was a renowned figure in Jinmu City. However, the Saint Lord of Juyang had switched sides during the battle, ambushing the Zhu tribe leader and trying to kill him. The Zhu tribe leader hated him for that. Boom! Raging flames swept into the Zhu tribe leader's body, burning and killing him right away. The fourth holiness of Nirvana perished in the battle that day. Yen Yuan watched the scene unfold from the side, and looked at the Saint Lord of Juyang. He'd thought previously that the Saint Lord of Juyang would have attacked Wu Yong. However, things had turned out to be completely opposite, as he'd chosen to help Wu Yong by killing the Zhu tribe leader instead. It was apparent that the Saint Lord of Juyang behaved like some of the Western region's tribe leaders, betraying their allies and switching sides on the fly. Furthermore, he did not simply give up and leave. He'd opted instead to land a killing blow out of nowhere, thereby adding yet another holiness of Nirvana to Yi Futian's kill list. He was extremely decisive. His method was extremely brutal. Countless people who were watching from far away were shocked by the scene. What the Saint Lord of Juyang had just pulled would probably be used against him in the future. However, the decisiveness and brutality he'd shown had no doubt served as the best way for him to get out. He did not want to get involved in the mess any further. The head of the Chong clan had been killed, so it was only a matter of time before the Chong clan was no more. He did not want to see the same thing happen to the Shi clan. City Lord Yi, I participated in today's battle out of greed, and I have atoned for my mistakes by killing a holiness of Nirvana for you. I hope you will forgive what I did today. When the dust settles in Qinya City, I shall get someone to visit you again, the Saint Lord of Juyang said with a brimming voice as he looked at Yi Futian. He was actually rather unlucky. Yi Futian had summoned Emperor Kwa before he was even ready to truly make a move against Yi Futian. He would not have gotten himself in this mess if he'd known things would turn out this way. Yi Futian looked at the Saint Lord of Juyang and thought about what he'd done. They'd acted extremely decisively when the opportunity had arisen to take Emperor Kwa's lineage for themselves. Now that the opportunity was no more and the tide had turned, this man had turned around and killed the Zhou tribe leader instead. With that, the game was set. The western region's tribes were no longer able to cause great disruptions. Furthermore, he knew that Yi Futian would continue to get rid of the remaining opposing tribes. As such, the Shi clan would be able to get out in one piece. "You despicable son of a b******ch, Zhu Kong berated. His voice was cold. The Saint Lord of Juyang was, after all, a renowned figure. He'd never expected the Saint Lord of Juyang to pull off something so despicable. The Saint Lord of Juyang turned to look at Zhu Kong with a plain look, thinking that Zhu Kong and the rest of his gang were not any better for showing up just to rob Yi Futian of Emperor Kwa's lineage. The two of them were having the same thought patterns. They had each only considered what was in their own best interests. "I shall take my leave." Seeing that the Saint Lord of Juyang was not going to bother replying, he cupped his hands and excused himself, then turned around and flew away. The Saint Lord of Juyang then headed towards the mighty figures of the Shi clan and said, "We shall head home now." They did not stay around to watch the rest of the battle, so that Yi Futian would not think that they were simply there to observe how things would turn out. Instead, they took the chance to leave immediately instead. The game was set, and the outcome of it would be heard soon enough. As the Saint Lord of Juyang had speculated, due to his defection and the death of the Zhou tribe leader, the outcome of the battle was already foreseeable. On the first day of year 10,025 of Divine Prefecture calendar, the 7 tribes of the western region appeared in a great show of force. The Saint King of Gai and many other top figures came to attack Qinya City, yet they failed to take the place. Furthermore, For Holiness of Nirvanas perished in the battle that ensued. At present, Zhu Kong and the others were no longer able to turn the tables around. Their fates were sealed. Wu Yong stepped away after the Zhu tribe leader was dead, helping the Vermilion Bird tribe leader fight Zhu Kong. At present, there were only 3 Holiness of Nirvanas left at Zhu Kong's side: the Zhu clan, the Zhong tribe, and the Raven tribe. All the others had either defected or died. No one had foreseen any of that before the battle broke out. Boom! A rumble was heard. Zhu Kong blasted with his hand, and then retreated at great speed, not giving Wu Yong any chance to get close. He then yelled, "Retreat!" He understood that the game was set by then. The chance of turning the tables was nearly non-existent. The 9 tribes of the western region intended to take back Emperor Kwa's lineage and the secret treasure of Emperor Kwa that Yi Futian had inherited, but the endeavor was destined to fail. Worse still, they paid an extremely heavy price for the endeavor. Yi Futian and the tribes that submitted to him would probably not let them go. Between the 2 sides of the 9 tribes, it was destined that one side would disappear from Crimson Dragon Realm for good. The Zhong tribe and the Raven tribe retreated and left as well. It was apparent that they knew they were no longer able to turn the tide. The opportunity to get Emperor Kwa's lineage was gone. Emperor Kwa's form that Yi Futian had taken remained standing tall in the sky, but he did not pursue the ones that ran away. He knew how things were at the moment. The stress that he was enduring at the moment was no longer worth fighting any longer. The battle between the Saint King of Gai and the star-plucking saint high up in the air was still incredibly terrifying. The stars completely surrounded them. The intensity of that battle exceeded any of the others fought between the Holiness of Nirvanas. It was apparent that the powers of both men were of considerably higher than the other Holiness of Nirvanas. In truth, the Saint King of Gai was unable to do anything to turn the tide so long as the star-plucking saint was around. Worse still, Xing Qiu was having a hard time below. Yu Sheng's raging bursts of attacks caused Xing Qiu's aura to continuously weaken, despite Xing Qiu having brandished a ritual implement to aid him in the fight. One stunning attack after another caused Xingqiu to feel like he was about to crumble. A loud rumble was eventually heard. A large handprint landed on Xingqiu's body, intending to break him apart completely. PFFTT. Blood spilled from Xingqiu's mouth, as his limp body was sent flying. However, Yusheng refused to let him go easily. A terrifying power of will burst from Xingqiu's body at that moment. The power of will overwhelmed everything around him. Yusheng immediately sensed an intense pressure when he drew near. Xingqiu's eyes seemed to have changed. There seemed to be another aura coming from his body that was extremely terrifying. Yusheng glared at his opponent. His eyes seemed to penetrate the other party, seeing yet another scene within. A figure was standing with his hands behind their back inside a tall, magnificent city, glaring at him with imposing, overbearing eyes, as if the entire space was looking down at him. It was none other than the #1 city outside of Crimson Dragon City. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. The #1 city of Crimson Dragon City, the ancient Imperial City. The #1 city of Crimson Dragon City, the ancient Imperial City. The ninth servant stood with his hands behind his back at the tall, majestic palace within the city lord's office. His sharp, imposing eyes gazed forward. His will seemed to have shot through the vast space before him and descended upon Qinya City, bursting through Xingqiu's eyes. The ninth servant was lauded as the #1 city lord outside of Crimson Dragon City, so much so that he was even known to be the #1 figure below Renhuang, and half a Renhuang. That was a plane like no other. However, to the ninth servant he had only someone per his namesake, a servant. Xing Kai and Xing Qiu were both the young masters he served. The ninth servant's greatest wish in his life was to see both of his young masters make it into Renhuang Plain. He was extremely concerned about the safety of Xing Kai and Xing Qiu, much more than other Renhuang would have only their offspring. He disallowed anyone from threatening the lives of both Xing Kai and Xing Qiu, which was why he became the #1 figure outside of Crimson Dragon City, and had his name known throughout Crimson Dragon Realm. A powerful aura burst from the ninth servant, shooting into the heavens. His will seemed to have melded with Xing Qiu's. In Qinya City, Xing Qiu took one step out, and his extremely raging aura sent Yusheng flying, and the demonic might about Yusheng faltering. That scene caused many to turn their eyes in their direction. They all sensed a terrifying aura from Xing Qiu. It was as if the aura had been someone else's. The mark of God of War. Everyone recalled a rumor, and their expression changed. Fighting will shot to the heavens from Xing Qiu. Brimming pressure washed all over the place in a raging tide. The phenomenon caused many to recall Xing Qiu's rumored background, which was related to the special ability trained by the ninth servant. That aura is probably not that of Xing Qiu, but of that #1 city lord. Know your place. A cold voice came from the ninth servant's lips. Xing Qiu then lifted his arm and lashed out. The mark of God of War seemed to have burst within an instant, overwhelming their surroundings as he charged at Yusheng. Yusheng shouted, and his demonic might emerged with a raging roar. His fist will tore through the space before him, and continued to roll. However, that mark seemed to have overpowered everything. The great path of the world around them rumbled, as if the sky was about to collapse. Boom! The demonic armor conjured around Yusheng seemed like it was about to shatter as he was pinned on the ground, spitting blood from his mouth. A cold killing intent was seen in Xing Qiu's eyes. Boom! A loud rumble was heard from above. Gai Huang and the star-plucking saint had both separated. Gai Huang was falling from the sky, down to Xing Qiu's side. He lowered his head and said, "Sir Ninth Servant." His eyes seemed to have a hint of self-blame in it. He had intended to help Xing Qiu take a treasure of Renhuang on that day, but it had ended up with Xing Qiu being caught in danger, and even almost ending up dead instead. "Ninth Servant, have you no shame?" a voice said from the sky. The star-plucking saint looked at the injured Yusheng. Another gust of might swept over the place from another direction. It was the lord of the regional palace coming down. Extremely overbearing aura washed all over Xing Qiu. Xing Qiu's eyes turned to both the star-plucking saint and the overbearing lord. He looked around, extending his will. There was no way he could fight all of the holiness of Nirvanas around. The ninth servant only wanted to see who would have dared to make a move against Xingqiu. So you're Yu Sheng, the young man who went to the regional palace to train then? The ninth servant took a look at Yu Sheng, who was rising from the ground, and said coldly. Demonic might continued to boil around Yu Sheng, as his eyes were fixed on Xingqiu. If you dare do so again, I will kill you all the same, even if you're one who is training in the regional palace, the ninth servant said. His voice sounded imposing. He behaved just as arrogantly, despite the lord of the regional palace standing right in front of him. Everyone around shuddered. That was the might of the ninth servant of the ancient imperial city, the #1 city lord outside of Crimson Dragon City. Rumor had it that he was only about half a step away from Renhuang Plain in his training. He was also ranked in the regional king ranking. The holiness of Nirvanas ranked on the regional king ranking were seemingly capable of reigning supreme over the saints. Few throughout the entire Crimson Dragon realm would be able to stand against them. Ninth servant, you're too much. That lord stepped forward and exerted his might onto Xingqiu. Yu Sheng was studying in what was technically his organization, which made the young man his student. Xingqiu looked up at the lord and said, I have no objections with sparring. But are you not going to stop him even if he were to land killing blows? The regional palace is known as the #1 holy land for training in all of Crimson Dragon realm. I wonder if I could pay a visit to your place? If Crimson Dragon Emperor were to allow it, that is. You could try. The lord glared at Xingqiu and answered. Xingqiu's eyes were icy, and he was devoid of any expression. However, he still looked overbearing and intense. Everyone knew that the regional palace was a holy land, yet they were limited by their perception of planes and the extent of powers. In the eyes of the ninth servant, however, the regional palace was of no difference from anywhere else, so long as there was not a Renhuang in it. Anyone who dared to do any harm to his young masters, they would have had to answer to the ninth servant. Gai Huang, bring Xingqiu back to the ancient imperial city, the ninth servant said to the Saint King of Gai at the side. Yes, sir. Gai Huang nodded. Boom. Yu Sheng stepped out, and his demonic might bursting in a raging manner. Do you think you can walk away like this? Xingqiu shot a glance at Yu Sheng, but he knew that those were not the eyes of Xingqiu. It was the eyes of the ninth servant. You think you could go about your business without regard for consequences, just because you're ranked on the regional king ranking? If anything were to happen to Xingqiu, how many in Qinya City do you think would live even if the regional palace was able to cover for you? The ninth servant's eyes seemed to be about to penetrate those of Yu Sheng, suppressing his demonic might. Both men stood off at each other. The will in Xingqiu's eyes gradually dissipated. He then said, Gai Huang. Gai Huang walked out and took Xingqiu, getting ready to leave. The star-plucking saint and many other mighty ones stopped him. Yu Sheng clenched his fists as his demonic might burst in a frenzy. He looked up at Gai Huang and Xingqiu, never saying a word the whole time. Yi Futian stared at his front. The mighty ones then watched Gai Huang took Xingqiu and left. Countless watched at the battlefield and shuddered deep down. So that is the ninth servant, the city lord of the imperial city. One top-notch figure had been more than enough to stun all mighty ones around him. The lord of the regional palace came before Yu Sheng, seeing that the demonic might around Yu Sheng had yet to dissipate, showing that he was incredibly frustrated. However, Yu Sheng did not make a move the entire time and watched those two leave. There would be a day where you will step into the ancient imperial city, but on your journey to get there, there is still Xing Kai, who is training in the regional palace as well, the lord said to Yu Sheng. He had high hopes for Yu Sheng's future. While Xing Kai was also in the ranking, he was under the charge of another lord. The lord before Yu Sheng came to believe in Yu Sheng when he saw him. Yu Sheng's future achievements would eclipse those of Xing Kai. With the ninth servant taking Xingqiu away, he hoped that there would be a day where Yu Sheng could step into the #1 city outside of Crimson Dragon City himself. That ancient imperial city, which had never been touched by any other. As Gai Huang left, the battle finally came to an end. Zhu Kong and his men were all holiness of Nirvanas. No one would have been able to stop them if they were to insist on leaving. However, The mighty ones from their respective tribes remained. City Lord Yi, could we head back to the tribes and sort things out first? The few tribe leaders then said to Yi Futian. Very well. Yi Futian nodded. The 9 tribes were in a mess at present, and there was a need for those people to sort out the mess. Everyone flashed and left. The mighty ones from the Zhu clan were closely monitored to prevent Zhu Kong and his men from going home and throwing their weight around in the tribes. The commotion had to be sorted out. There were already 2 tribe leaders out of the 9 perished and eliminated early. Things with the remaining tribes depended on how things played out. The mighty ones left one after another, while the sky was still red, as if it was on fire. Vast tracts of land had been burned down. It was as if a firestorm had attacked the city. The whole place was brimming with a fiery aura. An earth-shattering battle had been fought, and things came to a close. It had been a while since a city, or even the entire Crimson Dragon realm per se, had seen a battle of such scale. Over a dozen holiness of nirvanas participated in the battles. One mighty one after another revealed what they were capable of. All of that happened due to the lineage left behind by Emperor Qua. Qinya City survived. Not only had Yi Futian managed to stay alive, but he had also even been able to maintain his possession of Emperor Qua's lineage. For holiness of nirvanas died on the battlefield on that day. It was believed there probably was not anyone who dared to make a move against him, without at least thinking twice. Furthermore, that was the result of the mighty ones from Emperor Xia's realm being involved. It was the strength of Qinya City alone that repelled such powerful enemies. That massive battle at Qinya City changed the place. Several leaders out of the 9 tribes submitted to Yi Futian. The strength of Qinya City reached a different level altogether right there. And then, at that moment, the flames all around them disappeared in a frenzy, flowing somewhere else. Everyone looked at Yi Futian's direction. That huge, imposing form of Emperor Qua's specter shrunk and dissipated quickly. The boundless flames seemed to have been swallowed by a terrifying whirlpool. The phenomenon persisted until Yi Futian was seen again, swallowing all remaining flames himself. Yi Futian continued to bask within the boundless flames. One mighty one after another came to his side. Yin Yuan did not leave. He too came to Yi Futian's side. Begin reconstruction of the city lord's office immediately, Shen Tianzhan ordered. The people of the city lord's office had only just come, and proceeded to clean up the rubble around. Are you all going to stay here still? He turned around, and looked at the mighty ones around who came to watch. There were quite a number of people there, but none of them had participated in the battles. No one else knew what was going on in their heads. I shall take my leave. The city lord of Flaming Prison City cupped his hands, and then left. Many top-notch figures then brought their men with them, and left as well. Many left quickly to prevent any unnecessary misunderstandings. None of them stayed behind for long. Many who were standing far away were people from Qinya City. Xiaqing Yuan, Yu Sheng, and the others came to Yi Futian's side, turning their attention to him. Yi Futian did not say anything. Tension and concern were seen in Xiaqing Yuan's eyes. Having tapped into such formidable powers must have come with terrifying recoil. How are you doing? Xiaqing Yuan asked with a low voice. The flames on Yi Futian gradually dissipated. He then looked at Xiaqing Yan. Blood dripped from the side of his mouth, and his entire body was red hot. All of his internal organs seemed to be burning. PFFTT. A mouthful of hot blood came right out of his mouth, before dropping onto the ground right away. The blood splashed onto Xiaqing Yuan. It was so hot that she was even able to feel the heat. She extended her arms to pick Yi Futian up, who was falling on her. His blood had stained her face. She felt the temperature from his body, and sensed his internal well-being. Xiaqing Yuan's eyes turned red hot as well, seemingly filled with terrifying killing intent. Xing Kai, on the other hand, was also a renowned figure ranked on the regional king ranking, and a fellow student of Yu Sheng in the regional palace. If he knew that Yu Sheng had almost ended up killing Xingqiu, his younger brother, many wondered if he would have looked for trouble with Yu Sheng in the regional palace. Other than the clash between Qinya City and ancient Imperial City, which attracted the most attention: the crumbling of the 9 tribes of the western region, and the death of a holiness of Nirvana from Xiang City was just as astonishing. In the era following Emperor Kua's passing, the western region of Crimson Dragon Realm had been ruled over by the 9 tribes, which were at odds with and competed against each other for many years. However, they were always united when dealing with anything that was not one of their own, which enabled them to maintain their status as overlords of the region. However, someone managed to inherit Emperor Kua's lineage, causing the 9 tribes to splinter and crumble. No one knew what would have happened following that. As for the death of a holiness of Nirvana of Xiang City, many wondered what Emperor Xiang's realm would have thought of it. It was said that after Xiang Nan returned to Xiang City, he brought his men with him and left. It was speculated that he had probably returned to Emperor Xiang's realm. Xiang Nan had, of course, been worried about Yi Futian taking revenge. Yi Futian had dared to kill a holiness of Nirvana from Xiang City. After all, there was no telling if Yi Futian would go to kill him next. Without a holiness of Nirvana stationed at Xiang City, there was utterly no way Xiang Nan could have resisted Qinya City. There were several holiness of Nirvanas at Qinya City, Wu Yong and Shen Tianzhan, both of whom were holiness of Nirvanas, would have followed Yi Futian. As for the possibility of Emperor Xiang's realm amassing mighty ones to take revenge, it remained an unknown. That was probably not something Xiang Nan would have been able to decide. A formidable battle with far-reaching consequences ushered in year 10020 of Divine Prefecture calendar. It seemed that the year would not have gone by in peace. It was also probably a sign signaling the rise of legends of another generation. Time passed, and the city lord's office of Qinya City was restored. The place had seen many troubles since Yi Futian came, and that was something rare on its own. There was probably no city lord's office in any other city that had seen so many troubles within such a short period of time, being destroyed and rebuilt again and again. Yi Futian was still asleep in his bedchamber in the palace. Su Chehan and Little Butterfly were at Yi Futian's side, checking on the extent of his injuries, while Lulan Shui was helping out at the side. "How is he doing?" Xia Qingyuan asked Su Chehan. While Su Chehan's plane might not have been high, he had learned the way of medicine from Saint Jiang later, and Little Butterfly was quite knowledgeable as well. "It is a miracle that he is alive. If it had been someone else, I'm afraid," Su Chehan said with a low voice. "But then again, there is no need to worry too much, Princess. His self-repair functions are extremely formidable. While the flames have scorched all his meridians and internal organs, they are regaining life bit by bit." Su Chehan was able to sense that Yi Futian had some special abilities that allowed him to keep repairing injuries. If it had been someone else, it would not have mattered if they were at proving holiness stage. Even if they were to be a saint of true self, they would have probably died a long time ago. Tapping into the force of Emperor Kua was dependent on how much one could have taken. Yi Futian's plane was far below what would have allowed him to withstand such a powerful force. Xia Qingyuan looked at Yi Futian, who was still in a coma, before turning around and walked outside. There were also others outside the room. Yin Yuan stayed behind. He had not left the room in days. While the battle fought previously had shocked many mighty ones, in truth, more of the shock factor came from Yi Futian summoning Emperor Kua and doing battle in his form. Many wondered how many times Yi Futian could fight like that. That one time had almost cost him his life, and he was still in a coma. As such, things were quite shaky in Qinya City. If someone were up to no good, like Gai Huang, things would quickly take a turn for the worst. As such, other than Yin Yuan, Wu Yong, and Shen Tianzhan were also at Qinya City, guarding the place against any unforeseen circumstances. "Sir." Xia Qingyuan bowed slightly to Yin Yuan. "Your orders, Princess?" Yin Yuan looked at Xia Qingyuan and asked. "I'm getting ready to head back to Emperor Xia's realm for a bit. I'd like you to look after Qinya City in my absence," Xia Qingyuan said. Among the 3 holiness of Nirvanas in Qinya City, she naturally trusted Yin Yuan the most. While Yin Yuan had once been on the opposing side of Emperor Xia's realm, which technically made them enemies, Xia Qingyuan nonetheless trusted Yin Yuan more. The temperament and character of the imperial advisor of Dali and his students were all tried and tested. Despite being enemies, they were worthy of respect. Furthermore, Yin Yuan appeared on time when such a crisis hit Qinya City. Rest assured, Princess. Yin Yuan nodded. Thank you, sir. Xia Qingyuan thanked him and then left. A group of people left Qinya City without making a fuss. Few knew that they were even gone. Time passed, and many throughout Crimson Dragon Realm continued to pay close attention to Qinya City's affairs. There were rumors that Futian suffered severe recoil after that battle, with his state of life and death remaining unknown. He had yet to make it through. Xia Qingyuan had probably returned to Emperor Xia's realm to get someone to treat him. Some claimed that Futian would never rise again. Recoil from a feat as formidable as tapping into the will of Emperor Qua and bringing such levels of combat prowess to bear would have terrifying consequences. Futian might have even paid the price with his life. Countless continued to keep a close eye on Futian despite the rumors. If Futian were to perish, there would be yet another storm waiting to come. Everyone saw how things would turn out at the moment. The western region was anything but peaceful throughout the entire period. The Zhu clan, the Zhong tribe, and the Raven tribe were allied, fighting against the Nanli tribe, the Vermilion Bird tribe, and the Bailey tribe, which had joined hands. Several battles had been fought between both sides. There had been many casualties, and yet none had been able to best the other. The Zhu clan was waiting for news as well, hoping that Futian would never come to this time. The alliance would have naturally come apart in that case. With Futian still around, the three tribes allied with him still had hope in the future. If Futian were to emerge fine, Zhu Kong and the rest knew that it would spell disaster for them. However, none of them escaped. All three tribes were huge, and their industries vast. There was no way they could have all just migrated elsewhere. While Crimson Dragon Realm was a huge place, it would still be near impossible to move three tribes of such massive sizes elsewhere. That was unless all of them were to leave Crimson Dragon Realm and move to other realms. The option was not one they deemed acceptable, however. At present, all they were able to do was to continue to pressure the other three tribes, trying to take the other side down as soon as possible. The alliance of the three tribes around the Zhu clan remained an advantage. The powers of Zhu Kong and Zhong Lu were more powerful, after all. As long as they were able to defeat the other three, Futian could have hardly posed a threat to them, even if he were to awaken. On that day at the Nanli tribe, massive numbers of mighty ones were in the air. Castles were everywhere below, and members of all 6 tribes were fighting there. We of the 9 tribes have always been of one entity, yet you people choose to submit to an outsider and forsake the alliance of the 9 tribes. Zhu Kong stood tall in the sky, and a brilliant light burst from his body. He then added, "If you remain headstrong and foolish, then this battle will never cease. If you remain ignorant of the alliance between the tribes, then we shall do everything and use any means necessary to crush you." To Zhu Kong and his people, time was running out, and they needed to settle things as quickly as possible. Zhu Kong, if you confess to your crimes and ask for forgiveness in Qinya City, City Lord Yi might still probably pardon your crimes. The Bailey tribe leader then added, "We of the 9 tribes invited people all over Crimson Dragon Realm to enter the ruins. It was fate that Futian inherited the lineage. It is also the will of Emperor Qua. From how he performed in Qinya City, he might just become yet another Emperor Qua in the future. Why stick to the old ways and succumb? I, Zhu Kong, shall never submit to another," Zhu Kong said proudly, his voice reverberating throughout the entire area. He then looked at the ones below and asked, "We are the 9 tribes. Are you telling to submit to an outsider?" He suddenly sensed something when he spoke. He turned his head around and looked. "That's so." A voice was heard from the sky. Many sensed the vast, undeniable pressure coming down on them. A figure appeared all of a sudden before long. It was as if a celestial army had emerged from the heavens. Their pressure was felt throughout the entire region. An extremely beautiful woman stood in the midst of those mighty ones. It was none other than Xia Qingyuan, princess of Emperor Xia's realm. Emperor Xia's realm. Zhu Kong then looked at the top-notch figures at her side. His expression turned extremely grim within seconds. Xia Qingyuan had asked for reinforcements from Emperor Xia's realm. Furthermore, there were several holiness of nirvanas. On this day, any who refuses to surrender shall be eliminated with extreme prejudice. Xia Qingyuan's voice was icy. Refusing to submit to another, you said? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.